Hey everyone, just give me 1 second. I'm having issues with this camera being clean here. All right, there we go. I think we're good now. Uh, let's see here. All right, we're good. Live stream. This is the last live stream of the new year. I hope you guys are all doing well. I'm going to give you guys a couple seconds to join in here. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Hope you guys are all doing well. I'm reading some of these comments. So I got Walker Films, Jake Feldman. All right, let's see what we got here. Anyone here early? Me, hi. Ever been to Indiana Beach? No, sadly, haven't you? I guess everybody's already in a live stream so early. So I hope you guys are doing well here. And 2020 was a rough year for the park. So we're talking about today. We're talking about the returns that these type of parks talked about. I've had a couple people talk about already, and then people are talking in the comments. Thank you guys for carrying the conversation of your favorite coasters. And I'll be keeping an eye on that as well. But I'm going to be bringing up some stats here. So, as you guys know, 2020 was a rough year for parks. It started off great. Like SeaWorld had great returns, record attendance. Most parks had record attendance. They were doing great. The only downside was that we found out that Indiana Beach was closing at the end of last year. And then in return, Staples bought it. It reopened in June, so we don't have to deal with that anymore. Fantasy Island closed at the beginning of the year. And then any other park that was owned by Apex. Now, many of you guys know already, I'm not going to get into the gist of it or anything like that, but we've heard rumors about SeaWorld possibly having issues, Six Flags, and a variety of different places that own a variety of different parks. The owners of Kennywood, and a couple of the other small parks might have issues. Now, I think the small parks are going to do better than the corporate parks. However, smaller parks have a larger issues at hand because they can't borrow more money. The problem that we're having, and I'm going to bring up, like I said, I'm going to bring up stats here in just a second. Jack Feldman asked, have you heard about SeaWorld might be going bankrupt? That's been the rumor here for like 2 or 3 years. SeaWorld, in my opinion, is a great park. However, under the current ownership and, Blackfish happening back in 2012, didn't do well for the park. So in 2012, Blackfish came out, and many people believed everything they saw in that documentary. Attendance slumped at all the SeaWorld parks. Not so much Busch Gardens. Busch Gardens did fairly well. But the SeaWorld parks, SeaWorld Orlando, SeaWorld San Diego, SeaWorld San Antonio, attendance slumped at all those due to the orcas. Now, obviously, that was found not to be true. I know personally that SeaWorld hires trainers that are certified and marine biologists. So that thing that they just hire anybody off the street to work with these animals is a complete lie. And I believe, and I'm going to look that up here in a second, but I believe that they are actually certified by the American Zoological Association and Aquarium Association. And I'm going to look that up here in just a second after we do that. But the thing is that we're talking about here, and, SeaWorld already had financial issues. So let's just go talk about SeaWorld Entertainment here for a second. So if you guys are joining in here, you guys will see what I'm talking about. But let's just talk about SeaWorld Entertainment here. So let's start off by talking about SeaWorld Entertainment. As many of you guys know, Anheuser-Busch, and I'm getting a lot of reflection off this. I think it's due to, unfortunately, a lot of sunlight hitting this. But many of you guys know that SeaWorld Entertainment was bought. It used to be owned by Anheuser-Busch. Then it went through a series of owners, and now it's under current ownership. I'm not going to get into the complete history of it. If you want to look at the complete history of it, check out Airtime Thrill's new video. He did a great job on covering the research on it. I want to cover each individual park. And yes, I'll talk about Indiana Beach here in a minute. Indiana Beach is fine. So they're not really in the discussion about 2020. Obviously, 2020 had nothing to do about Indiana Beach closing and Fantasy Island closing, so that has nothing to do with this year. But Seaworld Entertainment has had struggles ever since Blackfish, and they're kind of pushing away from having animals and trying to push into more thrill rides. Now, the additions over at Busch Gardens Williamsburg and Busch Gardens Tampa are a lot larger than the addition of Icebreaker over at SeaWorld Orlando, Texas Stingray over at SeaWorld San Antonio, and Emperor over at SeaWorld San Diego. However, those investments probably totaled close to $100 million for a park that was already, reaping $25 million a month in payouts back to their loan companies. And when that pandemic hit back in March, you're looking at all their profits and all their projected profits just disappeared. Now they have a lot of cash on hand. I believe it's either 400 or 500 million. But if they're burning through $25 million a month, what happens is eventually that cash is going to run out, and then they have to pay 9% interest back on those loans. So this year is a wash. Somebody asked here if SeaWorld is going to go bankrupt. It's not. If they do go bankrupt, it's not going to happen this year. It's not going to happen next year. It'll be in 2022. Their projections, they reduced their projections this year. I think a lot of parks are kind of like, besides some of the ones that were able to actually benefit from 2020, their projections next year is like 200 million, and then their projections for 2022 is a lot higher. The problem is they don't have a lot of residual cash on hand, and they are losing money, not having any net profits. So you got to look at it as a whole. So attendance has dropped, and then you have your profits coming in. Then you have your bills accountable, like payable accounts, things of that so forth. So you have salaries. So you have your loans that you're paying back, or let's say you're a park that doesn't operate on debt, which would be almost extremely impossible. Then in return, what you do is you count all that money up. So your profits coming in, your accounts payable going out, and then you have what is called a net profit. SeaWorld hasn't had a net profit in quite a long time. They were hoping this year would be the break on it. So what's going to happen is if they don't hit their projections next year, which they should, it's 2021. I think they will. I think we see a lot of parks resurfacing. Then the stockholders are going to probably start pulling out and selling the stock. And that time, what happens is you have a lot of other issues dealing with that. But if they're not posting a profit, basically, they got a $400 million loan, from what I understand. I think it's for like $400 million. So basically, they say, we're projecting this. We promise we will have this in return. You will get your money back. And then they get their residual cash in hand. They're able to pay their bills. They're able to catch up with everything. But if they do not meet that in 2 years, they still own that loan. So what happens is, if they can't pay that loan, what happens is that's when they file bankruptcy. And that's when they start selling things. So many of you guys remember at the beginning of the year, Apex kind of did that. And then Six Flags about 10 years ago kind of did the same thing. So what happens is they start paying a lot of things to try to pay off that debt. And they try to find a buyer for their debt. And if everything works out great, they're able to save the company. If not, they fold under. Usually during that time, they might sell profitable parks and downsize their portfolio, which happened with Six Flags last time that happened. Well, what happened with Apex back in earlier this year, they started selling rides. They started selling other things. to try to pay off some of that debt, and they have a certain amount of time to try to find a buyer for it. Indiana Beach found a buyer. Eugene Staples bought the park. So then Apex didn't have to worry about that debt anymore. They were able to sell off that debt to somebody else. Now, obviously, whatever they sold the park for probably paid off the debt that was owed. So Eugene Staples, the only thing I heard about Indiana Beach is that the land underneath might not be owned by the park. However, like I said, with SeaWorld, in 2 years, if they don't show some sort of profit or anything of that nature, what happens is, and we have a good discussion going on here. I'll read it here in just a second. What happens is the creditors want their money. They can't pay their bills. They get so far behind on paying their debt that they declare bankruptcy. It's kind of like what you would do if you can't pay your bills and it's piling onto your credit. You file bankruptcy to get rid of it. It's kind of like a fresh start for the park. Well, there's a couple different ways that they could restructure. I'm not going to get into that in this podcast podcast and video today. But I think SeaWorld will be fine. I think they will see their returns next year. I think Icebreaker, I think Iron Gwazi, Pantheon, Emperor, and Texas Stingray were great additions. I think it's going to pay off. And they didn't add a lot and not a lot. They added one per park, which is a lot for that corporation. But you didn't see any type of investment really being done by Six Flags. And that's the one I really wanted to talk about. So we started off talking about SeaWorld Entertainment. Like I said, I don't think SeaWorld, and I could dig into this here. So let me go ahead and bring up some information here. There's an article released earlier this year here. Okay, so I'm going to share this over here with you guys. Yeah, there was an article released earlier in the year. SeaWorld's raised cash to stay alive, but is it enough? Let me share it. Okay, it is working. Let's go ahead and read this real fast. So right here you have, man, so many pop-up ads when you look at these articles nowadays. So here we go right here. 227.5 million, and all the reductions and things of that forth. $25 million every month as they're having to pay in bills. So they basically have $225 million that they got as a loan. That allowed them to catch up on their payments, probably with Pantheon, with Iron Gwazi, with Icebreaker. Texas Stringer, as far as I understand, is already paid off, and with Emperor. So they're making their payments towards them. At the same time, they're paying out $25 million a month because that's what basically their debt is. The parks didn't reopen until June. So after June, what happens is then they have to start looking at quarterly losses. As far as I understand, SeaWorld had some good quarterly losses. We're not going to get into all that. But like I said, 2020 was really hard on the court. But you have to look at, they are restructuring and trying to make their way past it. And they're actually hiring back people now in SeaWorld Orlando and Busch Gardens Tampa, which is good news. And I think San Antonio is doing the same. So that's usually a good sign that things are starting to work in their favor. And from what I'm seeing, the crowds are pretty good. What's hurting them right now is we have Williamsburg that's on limited capacity, and we have San Diego that's completely shut down. San Diego is kind of a small park, and then we have Sesame Place that's, I believe, is shut down as well. So it's hard to tell what's going to happen. But if SeaWorld does all the right moves, and then next year they're way over projection and they bring in 300 million instead of 150, they're way over projection. That looks good for their portfolio. And then they fully rebound in 2022 as expected. And I think that could possibly happen. When this article was written, was a little bit longer, about over the summer. Obviously, we didn't know when the vaccine was going to come out, so these were projections that if this lasted into next year, what would be the overall thing that would happen? Now, obviously, people are getting the vaccines, which is great news. So next summer, I think parks are going to operate at mostly full capacity. And I think the crowds start coming back next year, allowing the parks to start rebounding. However, the investments in the future, I don't think we start seeing until like 2023. But I think SeaWorld survives this pandemic, and I think they survive. I do not agree with the amount of spending that is going on. I like it, but I don't agree with it. So let's go ahead and go into Six Flags, which this is the one that really is the one that should bother you guys. So Six Flags has done limited investments. They opened a lot of coasters late. Sorry. Um, Even if the pandemic didn't happen, I don't think most of those coasters would open on time. I think Six Flags is doing um, poorly because you have Magic Mountain that's shut down and a variety of other parks, hurting their residual income, their profits coming in, and they're still having to pay everything out. But they got cash in hand as well. However, I want to look at the past with them. So you have the pandemic. They had reduced crowds, reduced capacity. Season passes are down. Attendance is down. Profits are down. Anything that was scheduled to open this year is now opening next year. But even before that, you had a variety of different things that happened. I mean, you looked at West Coast Racers, that opened in January, and that was open for 3 months. I don't think we would have saw anything open on time except for maybe Jersey Devils. Sorry, I don't know why I'm yawning. I don't think we would saw anything open besides Jersey Devil in that hand. So you have that as well. And over at Six Flags Great America, they didn't even break ground on that new water coaster. And a lot of different things have been delayed. Some have even been delayed till 2022. So some of the rides that were supposed to open this year won't open until 2022 now instead of 2021, which tells me that they have an issue with paying their bills and they have an issue with profits coming in. So, Six Flags has not done too well. You have, like I said, you have some of their biggest parks. Six Flags Great America is a big park, closed, only open till for winter walkthrough, or not winter walkthrough, for like a drive-through Christmas thing. Magic Kingdom, or Magic Kingdom, Magic Mountain did the same thing. But yeah, when you look at it here, and I think Six Flags is probably the one that if anybody's going to declare bankruptcy, it's probably going to be them. And I found an article on this. I'm trying to find it right now, but we have people discussing about a lot of good things. And I'm trying to find out what they think. Uh, right now, nobody. This is what's weird. So right now, nobody in the media is projecting they're going to hit bankruptcy, but I have a feeling that they're going to do that because they're doing a ride movement program. As many of you guys know, they decided that. Yeah, I agree on this. I'm reading you guys' comments in here. So Walker Film said, wouldn't be surprised if they raised the pass price to help their finances. I agree they should raise prices. So what they do with these passes, so I don't agree with their model. So SeaWorld kind of has like a different tiers that make a lot of sense, right? So you have a starting tier, which is a fun pass, and you move all the way up to platinum, which includes all the parks. Six Flags doesn't do that. Six Flags has a season pass, goes straight to a gold pass, and then different levels of platinum and whatever diamond, whatever they're calling them these days. And the problem with that is that they're attracting this crowd. So you're offering meals for $6 a month. So what you're doing is you're in return creating what I call a budget chain. You're attracting the wrong crowd, so you're attracting people that probably don't want to spend money. are going to Six Flags just to ride the rides, maybe play a couple games, and get their free lunch and dinner with their pass. Many other parks charge a lot more money for food, and in return, I think what you're having happen is by creating a discount chain, you're not seeing the type of returns that you want to see. You're seeing a lot of crowds, but in return, these crowds are not spending the money that you thought they were going to. So in their minds, I think what happens is they think creating a more affordable pass brings in more people to spend more money. In return, the opposite has happened. And they've only been really investing in flat rides. They haven't invested in a lot of roller coasters at their parks. They're talking about a ride movement program now, which gives us a sign that they don't have any intentions over the next 3 years, probably, to build anything new at their parks. So, I mean, they're not projecting a huge profit in the next couple years. Obviously, Magic Mountain's their baby. They're going to give Magic Mountain whatever they want. But the other parks are going to suffer in that. I think we might see them sell the less profitable chains, which in return would obviously be the ones they probably took over from operations. So I think possibly you could see Frontier City possibly being sold off. I don't know. Frontier City was able to open this year. Um, what are you describing me? Reminds me of the customers at the theater I work at $5 Tuesdays, the cheapest people ever. Got free things and only wanted more for free. That's so funny. And then John Davis said that it is me. I'm not trying to say it's bad or anything like that, so don't take this to heart. I don't overspend money when I go to parks. I have a SeaWorld Entertainment, Cedar Fair, Universal, and I do buy occasionally. I don't buy all the time. But what I'm saying is when you set your passes so low and then you're expecting people then to return to buy more things and it backfires on you and now your season passes are going down because people were canceling because they weren't giving the same benefits out of their season passes. Now your model's backfiring. So more passes, more fun. Kind of. We cover content, so that's the reason why I have a lot of passes. And most of mine are already paid off because all of them have already been extended into the end of 2021, so I don't even have to worry about anything. But yeah, in return, what happens is you get what I call a budget crowd, and this budget crowd gets their meals, get their things, and they go. Now, I went to Great Adventure over the summer, and I got an El Toro shirt for like $8 because they upgraded me to some sort of Diamond Elite, and I got 50% off of my merchandise. So I paid $8. I mean, $8 for a T-shirt. So I was like, okay, whatever. I felt like I was stealing the T-shirt. I'm gonna be dead honest because even when I get my discounts at other chains and other parks for my pass, it's only about 20 to 30%. But if you're giving me 50% off of merchandise, by the way, SeaWorld's doing the same thing with Platinum Pass holders, giving them 50% off the merchandise. I don't think that benefits the chain, and I think it hurts them. However, I know they're ordering everything in bulk, so if they're making $2 off a shirt, they're making a profit. But what you get is a lot of people that go into these parks might just have a season pass, might just have gold pass, so they're not saving those type of money, so they're not spending that type of money back into the park. Six Flags' model is a disaster. Selling season passes cheap on a monthly payment option, and then in return, hoping people spend it. So not only are you not getting your season pass money up front, they're paying it in payments, but in the meantime, you projected a certain amount of season pass holders that's not happening as well. But you're not adding anything interesting to the park like Cedar Fair, like SeaWorld Entertainment, Universal, Disney, other small parks, Silver Dollar City, Dollywood. You get the picture I'm talking about. And Cedar Fair has kind of tried this model. I don't think they're going to keep it. Um, okay, let's see what everybody has to say here. Flash Pass is so cheap. It is. It's 50% off if you have a diamond, I think. I've never done a Flash Pass, but might consider it. That would Cedar Fair does a fast lane, not a fast pass. A Flash Pass. It's pricey at Cedar Fair. I agree. Yeah, it's $60, but it depends on how busy everything is, and that's a different model. So I think the Flash Pass, I think the watch is a great idea. I think they do a great job with it. I think it's a great idea. Actually, I enjoy it more than the Fast Lane, and here's why. The Fast Lane instead of the Flash Pass, so the Fast Lane doesn't basically, if you purchase the Fast Lane, you're in a separate line that moves faster than the general line. Like Cedar Point on a busy day, like last year, I had a Fast Lane, $160 Fast Lane pass, expensive. Waited in line for 40 to 50 minutes for one coaster. The public was probably waiting 3 hours. I didn't think it was worth it. Six Flags gives priority depending on the type of watch that you have. So if you pay more money, you wait almost no time. But the problem that Six Flags has with their Flash Pass, it's a great idea. People running the line sometimes aren't managing it properly. Flash Pass is supposed to get priority, and they're supposed to let them in instead of the general line. So I think if they were to change that and monitor that better, I think you're looking at possibly more people purchasing that, because I saw that somebody put that on there. But Six Flags has to reevaluate their situation. I think if they looked at investing in cheap coasters for their smaller parks, more expensive coasters for their bigger parks, I think they would see more people wanting to go to Six Flags. Cedar Fair doesn't invest much at all. Cedar Fair this season invested in one coaster, Ryan at Kings Island, and they had really good returns on it. Cedar Fair's more responsible. They know what they're doing. I don't want to get into Cedar Fair because Cedar Fair's financials are fine. They're actually very smart on their financials, and they have a very good They have very good management that knows how to run everything. And in return, you don't have the types of problems that Six Flags does. Six Flags, I hate them being known as a budget chain, because I'll tell you what, Six Flags has got some good coasters, has some good things, but like I said, their major problem is creating a price so affordable where nobody's purchasing anything besides season passes. They don't purchase daily passes anymore, leading in return to less of a profit. Yeah, Fastlane this year at Kings Island and at Cedar Point was actually really well. I was speaking of last year with full crowds, and they sold the gold passes to try to let everybody into Cedar Point this year. Just imagine how much worse it would have been if the pandemic didn't happen. We would have been looking at capacity almost every single weekend, almost every single weekday, because a lot of people purchased the gold passes. Latest I heard on that, I think it was 400,000 gold passes were purchased. More flags, more fun. And the reason I'm talking about this is because, there's been a lot of videos that came out from Airtime Thrills, from other people speculating that, bad things are about to happen to a lot of parks. However, a lot of them were able to get loans because of the pandemic. It's prolonging it. The futures of these companies, I feel bad for them, because the amusement park industry was seeing record-breaking returns, and we were seeing a lot of return to Coaster Wars and building up parks. We had Universal that said they were building Epic Universe, which is still going to happen. It's just delayed. But if you remember, there's a Disney Universal war going on in Orlando. SeaWorld can't keep up with SeaWorld Orlando doesn't have the room to keep up with those two. But Busch Gardens Tampa does. And we just had a bunch of variety of different things that came down. I find out there are a lot more similarities between Six Flags and Cedar Fair than most people get. Yeah, the thing is, Cedar Fair is smart, though. So what Cedar Fair does is they have a variety of different options depending on the person, and they only offer bring a friend days on certain days, things of that nature. But what Cedar Fair does really good is their operations. All their parks have good operations for the most part. And in return, they keep a clean park, clean operations. They install good coasters. And in return, people keep on coming back. Six Flags, limited investments, building cheaper coasters, less theming, less design, bringing in less of a crowd. Now, I think, Six Flags was doing a great job. It'd be nice if I could get a loan because of the pandemic. If you're a small business or something of that nature, you actually can. True, that's the thing. So many of you guys remember this year, Cedar Fair, what they did instead of investing heavily in all their parks, they added a new addition every single park, but it might have been a smaller addition, giving them something new, which would be like an improvement to the kiddie areas, new water slides, but they did something for each of those parks. Cedar Fair or Cedar Point was concentrating on the 150th anniversary. So in return, with them concentrating on that, they weren't really too concerned about new ride additions. From what I hear, 2022 might have one. That's the rumor going on right now. But yeah, I agree. There's a lot of similarities actually between all the chains: SeaWorld, Cedar Fair, um, Six Flags. They all have similarities. SeaWorld has a quick queue, which I think is affordable. I think it's managed well. Cedar Point has the fast lane. Six Flags has the Flash Pass. The difference is I don't think Six Flags advertises the Flash Pass enough, or else we'd probably see more people use it. The fast lane is advertised all over the park as you walk in online. I mean, you can't miss it. Quick queue at SeaWorld's advertised a lot, but not a lot of people use it, which is odd too. Great Adventure could be growing like Kings Island with only a couple of years of investment. It's just sad to see a park so on the brink to go without coasters like Cedar Point and Magic Mountain. I agree. Uh, Over at Great Adventure, so I went there this year. I saw a lot of clones, but I saw a lot of unused potential because Crimson Sunbirds mentioning this. So I saw a lot of unused things on it. So funny part that he mentions this because I saw a park that had all this land, all this space, and was not being taken care of by Six Flags. I mean, you look at their latest edition; it was El Toro was probably their newest edition over there. Before that, King the Ka. Other than that, they haven't really seen anything huge, and Jersey Devil was their huge addition. However, they had a lot of clones added there. Yet, Superman. You had a relocated coaster called Green Lantern. But I didn't see anything original really there, besides like Bizarro and Nitro. And you see this park; it has tons of land. It's beautiful. It's a beautiful park. I look at what would happen if a different chain like Cedar Fair owned that park. It's like a great area too. So the limited amount of investment just amazes me with Six Flags. Yeah, Six Flags has smaller investments, more clones, more fun. Every park. Yeah, that's the thing. You're not original. But listen to this. So Great Adventure is only like what, like an hour, not even an hour away from New York City. And you think that Six Flags would invest a good chunk of change like they do in other parks like I mean, you look at Fiesta Texas gets probably more additions than even Great Adventure, which is really odd to me because Great Adventure, sorry, Great Adventure is close to New York City, close to Philadelphia. Magic Mountain is close to Los Angeles. Great America is close to Chicago. So why aren't you investing into coasters into this park, Great Adventure, like you are your other parks, Great America, Magic Mountain? I don't understand how Great Adventure doesn't have a new coaster being put up every 3 years like Great America and Magic Mountain. Fiesta Texas is, like I said, has had more additions than Great Adventure. El Toro was a great addition. King the Ka was a great addition, and then all of a sudden, yeah, Fiesta Texas is their testing ground for Six Flags. I agree. But what's weird to me is that you're so close to a major city. You should be advertising the hell out of that area to the point where your park is always crowded, always busy, and you would see returns. You are in major metropolitan areas, which could be good and could be bad. Cedar Fair is not in that many major metropolitan areas. You have Carowinds, that's in Charlotte. Kings Island, that's north of Cincinnati and Mason. Great America in California, Knott's Berry Farm. Okay, you have 4 of those places. But you look at, for the most part, okay, never mind. I take it back. But Cedar Fair is in more smaller cities. Six Flags is in more major cities. And it's just really odd to me that they don't capitalize off of their top 3 parks. In my opinion, their top 3 parks is Great Adventure, Six Flags Great America, Magic Mountain. If they change the way they invest, the way they do things, Six Flags will survive. If not, I see them filing bankruptcy in 2022 as well, because the creditors are going to give them 2021 to rebound. If they don't show a return a little bit, 2022 is when they're going to file bankruptcy again. We've already seen huge delays on all their projects. Some projects that were supposed to open this year were delayed till next year. Then they changed those to 2022. And hey, Hayden, how you doing? Um, some of the good performance. So we're talking about bad news. Let's talk about the good performers of 2020. So I spelled that wrong. Hold on. So the good performers of 2020. I think you guys already know who I'm going to put on there. Uh, you have these parks that I'm mentioning. You guys will probably agree with me on this. So those are the ones I listed at the bottom of that. Altona, Pennsylvania. Um, so I listed them at the bottom here. Cedar Fair, Indiana Beach, Holiday World, Dollywood, and Silver Dollar City were the ones that I visited this year that I noticed that were handling the pandemic extremely well. And we're actually seeing good crowds. I didn't see really a lot of changes. I think Universal and Disney has handled it well as well, but they're losing a lot of money, so that's why I didn't mention them as the good performers. So Indiana Beach went bankrupt, came back. Holiday World, great crowds all year round. They handled the pandemic well. They introduced a new virtual queue system. Virtual queue system. Well, at least they'll file for bankruptcy well because they have experience. Hoping everyone is having a great new year. I agree with you. So yeah, Cedar Fair did great this year. As soon as the pandemic hit, they knew exactly what plan they were going to take. And they laid out a plan for the oncoming years. They knew exactly what they were going to do. They paid attention to the pandemic. They knew exactly what was going to happen. They had a lot of residual cash. They had plenty of cash in reserves. Cedar Fair is fine. They've done good. They've reopened their parks correctly. Indiana Beach, great new owners, cleaned the parks well, had hand sanitizer all over the place, even though people judged it because they didn't know Indiana policy, which was that you didn't have to wear a mask. It was not required through the state. Holiday World was the same thing. Unfortunately, you have a lot of misinformation from people that might be from the Northeast, out west, that didn't understand the different things. But Holiday World and Indiana Beach did well in Indiana. They also benefited from a state that didn't have to fully shut down because their numbers weren't high. Unfortunately, that's not the case right now with Indiana. Then you had Dollywood and Silver Dollar City. Dollywood and Silver Dollar City operated almost flawlessly as well. I've been to all these parks this year. I was very impressed by all of them. Do you think the states that had those parks had an influence on how well they did? Yes. Also, I think you know what? I'm going to add a couple other parks to the mix that I went to this year. So let's add. You'll see it here in a second. I'm going to make a surprise here. I did forget a. I did forget a couple parks here. So let's add Hershey Park and Knoebels into that mix. Knoebels did wonderful. Hershey Park has done wonderful. These are the parks that stood out this year and did extremely well during the pandemic. I don't foresee them having any problems next year. Trying to figure out what that noise was outside. I don't foresee them having any issues next year. Um, so I think Dollywood, I think Hershey Park, I think Knoebels, I think Holiday World, Indiana Beach, all these parks, the future looks bright for them. We already know Indiana Beach is investing in Chimera. That's coming all the way from La Fiera that shut down recently in Mexico. We know Holiday World's celebrating their anniversary next year. They're going to have a big anniversary celebration. Knoebels is redoing Flying Turns. That'll be open in time for next year. Hershey Park just opened Candemonium. Kings Island did fairly well with Orion that opened up over there. So all these parks did extremely well. Great performers of 2020. Great future. So not 2020 hasn't been bad with everybody. Mount Olympus, I think Mount Olympus did pretty well. If you're traveling out of state during a pandemic, you have to learn the policies of that state. Common sense to me. The problem is Holiday World are both my home states. So I don't know, but people in Indiana were pretty laid back during the pandemic. Might be a good or bad thing. Trusted that it was under control. True. Hayden over here is, and I agree with Walker Films as well. How he mentioned it. If you're traveling to a different state like I did, like myself, Jacob, and Annika, we all headed over to Hershey Park, Pennsylvania, and Knoebels. We knew exactly what the policies in Pennsylvania were. We looked them up. We knew that anything inside and at the parks required a mask, gas stations, restaurants. So nothing was a surprise to us. The only thing that was a surprise is when Knoebels basically said it's okay not to have to wear them outside. They got in trouble with it. They fixed it right away. But yeah, we looked up the policies and procedures in every single state before traveling. It's a good point, Walker Films, and that's why I'm bringing up your point. So, in return, nothing was a surprise. What aggravated me about 2020, and this year was horrible. It really was, but you got to make the best out of any situation, right? What aggravated me this year is all the people that were from out of state complaining about how people in the states that they were going to weren't taking the pandemic as seriously as their home states. And they were creating videos about it and so forth. The problem with all of that is that you are creating negative videos for attention because you want to. But the problem I had with that was that you're going to a different state. So if you had a problem with it before you went there, then you should have delayed your travel plans until next year, until things were more under control and things were safer in terms of what you want it to be. Criticizing and ridiculing places for operating differently than you would like them to doesn't make any sense to me. Also, people were criticizing YouTubers like myself, like Taylor Bybee and others, and I know Chris from Airtime Thrills, who I'm friends with. He also had issues with people in his comments criticizing him for not wearing a mask as much as they would like him to. So he ended up changing the way to get rid of those negative comments. And like I said, I wore a mask anywhere that it was required. And then as the pandemic started getting worse, what I did is I wore a mask everywhere because that was benefit to my health. So I didn't post anything negative reference to that. I hope people are taking it a little more seriously. We have the vaccine coming up. But my point is that people were kind of creating videos for attention and creating negativity surrounding parks. And that wasn't good. That was not good to be posting to YouTube in 2020. Let's see here. Talking about Mount Olympus. I think Mount Olympus had huge crowds because they were offering dirt cheap prices, and I think that plan's going to backfire on them. I hope I'm wrong on that, but I think that Mount Olympus plan is going to backfire them because you notice they increased their prices for 2021, so you will not see those prices again. And those that planned on returning next year saw those prices, and I know a lot of friends who decided to opt out of going there. Holiday World is one of the first parks to step up the plate after the pandemic. Yes, and the Koch family did really well. Leah did really well. We got an opportunity to check out the new system. We were extremely impressed by it. Extremely impressed by Holiday World. Yeah, and they had limited capacity at those parks, Hayden. I imagine you guys had a good time over there. 2021 will be more of them than 2020. Oh, more good. Sorry. I think so. I think 2021 is going to start off kind of like what this year's ending as. And I think we're going to see less restrictions as the year goes on because people are going to get vaccinated. There's going to be more readily available COVID testing. I think masks are going to be required for most of 2021 up until a certain point. But yeah, I think 2021 will be better because more people are used to this now, used to following the guidelines and so forth. And I haven't seen as many people complaining about them lately, so I think people are understanding the importance of it. As someone who lives in Minnesota, surrounded by states that handle it differently, I agree with you. Not comfortable, don't go. Thank you for your comment. Yes, I agree on that. I think the reservation systems allowed it. So, yeah, these parks listed below are the great performers of it. But uh, let me know what was your favorite. So let's get a little bit of interaction in it. What was your favorite park in 2020? What was your favorite park in 2020? Um, while you guys are deciding on that and you guys are getting that, do you think IAPA is going to happen in 2021? Yes, I do. IAPA will definitely happen. They're bringing the conventions back at the Orange County Convention Center here in Orlando, and I think IAPA does return next year. Busch Gardens, Williamsburg, Virginia was Hayden's favorite park. Holiday World for Jack. All right, David. Okay. Hollywood Nights was a lot of fun. Overly crowded this year, but definitely a lot of fun. I think our favorite park was probably Silver Dollar City, just because it was a new park. I don't even know if I would have went out there if it wasn't for the pandemic. Orion at Kings Island. Kings Island had a great experience. Orion at Kings Island. So it sounds like a lot of you guys had a great time on Orion. I think Orion has grown on people, and I think it's a lot better than what it was when it first opened. So I think it's one of those coasters that kind of grows on you, and you kind of appreciate it a little more the more you ride it. And I think that kind of happened to a lot of people. Our team really enjoyed Silver Dollar City, Hershey Park, Knoebels, a lot of different parks. Actually, Mount Olympus was kind of enjoyable, which was kind of weird because, but it was a nice, unique park with a good collection of CCI coasters. Six Flags St. Louis went there. It was okay. But I was able to get out to a lot of different parks this year that I normally probably wouldn't have went to because the whole goal was to, cover the new coasters. That didn't happen. So 2020 was actually a decent year because helped me get over to parks that I probably would normally wouldn't go to. And I agree, Area 72 was a good themed area that they redid at Kings Island. They did really good with that. And if we're going to talk about any other, I just wanted to get some, positivity on it. But the thing that worries me is Kennywood, and this is the next park that I want to talk about. So Kennywood, in return, didn't have Steel Curtain open, had a variety of different issues, and then announced that they're removing 4 rides this year. The company Merlin, I think let me look up the company that owns them because I always forget who owns Kennywood. Oh, Parcos Reunidos, and sorry, uh, trying to think who they own in the United States besides that. Storyland, Lake Compounds, Dutch Wonderland, Castle Park, Kennywood. Um, I think this is the so instead of talking about Kennywood, hold on, let me change this over. Change it over to Parcos Unidos. Sorry, guys. I'll get you comments here in just a second here. There we go. Parques Reunidos. Let's talk about them for a little bit. All their parks are, uh, they're having a rough time, and I could tell because they're relocating. They're selling 4 rides over at Kennywood. Yeah, they're all removing rides, so you have a variety of different parks that you announced it. I don't want to go over all the parks, but I think this is the one, another one that's going to either sell off a couple of their properties. I don't know if they're able to file bankruptcy because I don't know the bylaws where they're headquartered at. And I think if I look up here, yeah, they're headquartered in Madrid, Spain. So I'm not 100% familiar with the guidelines on terms of if they're able to file bankruptcy and so forth in Spain. But the, but yeah, so Parques Reunidos owns Kennywood, and they're selling 4 flat rides. They've had a lot of difficulty this year with the pandemic, with rowdy crowds and so forth and things of that nature. But the thing that worries me the most about Kennywood, you sold off 4 vintage rides. I'm hoping that Indiana Beach picks it up, one of those rides up, or another park picks one of those rides up because the Bayern curve is amazing over at Kennywood. But Steel Curtain did not open this year. SNS Worldwide was working on it. They're working out the kinks. But the weird thing was that they didn't even open their new coaster. It opened last year. It had a variety of different issues. It was supposed to open this year. It didn't. And then they had a variety of different issues with a couple other things in their park. And then they announced that at Kennywood that they were going to be selling off rides. And then a couple of their other parks, it was the same type of deal, which worries me about this. I don't know what the future for Kennywood holds. I hope it's a good one. Obviously, Kennywood will be fine in the long term because somebody will end up picking it up or buying out the vintage park. It has too much history to let something like that go. But however, it's SNS Sansai now. Oh, yeah, you're right. It is SNS Sansai. I thought SNS stood for that. I thought it was. Well, anyways, but anyways, yeah, I think Kennywood is the one that's going to have a variety of different issues in the long term. I can think of a variety of different smaller parks that might have issues. I hate to bring this other park up. You guys are probably going to be surprised, but I think this park is going to have a variety of different issues in the near term. And that park is Kentucky Kingdom. I know you guys might be surprised by this one, but from what I'm hearing, their profits weren't where they needed to be at, and so forth, and a variety of different issues happened. So Kentucky Kingdom no longer is opening their 2021 coaster, which was, from my understanding, RMC Raptor. That project was delayed indefinitely, and rumor is that because RMC is so close to Silverwood, that Silverwood ended up buying that coaster that was supposed to go to Kennywood, and they just changed the logo and a couple other things on it. Yeah, Vekoma is, and from what I understand, Vekoma is mainly focusing on Europe and overseas, and SNS is focusing on here in the United States. I'm trying to figure out who's buying that Axis concept, and I think I have it narrowed it down to 2 parks. And you guys will probably be surprised by the one I would love it to go to, but I think we could possibly see Kennywood go for it because it's another prototype. Or it could be going to, I think it's called not Luna Park. Is it called Luna Park over in the one that's adding the Zamperla drop water tower or whatever it's called? It'd be hilarious. That's called SNS. Oh, calling it Stan and Sandy, the people it named after. Which part? What's your opinion about Kentucky Kingdom? If you guys were there this year, I think that park operated greatly during the pandemic. I didn't see any issues there. I'm trying to figure out why they didn't see the returns that they could have saw. Um, you think that this park is on the brink of having issues? I don't think this park's going to go bankrupt. Okay, so the first couple corporations and parks that I talked about bankruptcy and having issues, I was being serious about. But Kentucky Kingdom, this I'm just talking about how 2020 was not good for Kentucky Kingdom, and in return, their profits weren't where they needed to be at. Their attendance wasn't near where it needed to be at, and in return, that's why I think they delayed that. They have to pay. I imagine they're still paying a little bit on Kentucky Flyer. Kentucky Flyer is kind of new still. Luna Park is in Australia and adding an intimate single rail. What Luna Park are you talking about? I thought there was a Luna Park in New York City. Let me check. Yeah, there's a Luna Park in Coney Island. I know they're adding the Zamperla drop water, and I talked about that in a prior show with Zach. My team's busy this week, but I wanted to get a show out to you guys. Um, but yeah, so far we know a lot of coasters are opening in 2021, but Kentucky Kingdom is not one of them. But I just wanted to put that out there. Kentucky Kingdom kind of worries me because first you saw that release that they were adding it, and then in return they decided not to add it. I think it's still in the works. I think it still happens. I think we're looking at 2022 for that. Drop. It's kind of like so. If I could find it here, let me see if I could find it here. Hold on. Go ahead and continue with your comments here. I'm just looking up the Zamperla. Uh, Hold on, I'm still looking it up here. Here we go. I found it. I'm looking for the official release on it, so just bear with me here. Unfortunately, I can't find it. I apologize. No, it's not an RCDB because it's not a roller coaster. But if you look it up there, you'll be able to find it. It's a Zamperla drop tower that drops you into a water area, and it displays a bunch of different things. Actually, I think I know where I could find it at. Zamperla Ride Luna Park. Let me see. Come on. Can't find it right now. But anyways, Luna Park is adding that, and that's a great addition for that. I don't know how I got off subject on that, but let's talk about the new coasters for 2021. What's happened here? Oh, I don't know what. Hold on a second. I don't know what. Hold on a second. This thing's actually really weird. What? Hello? And I'm getting a lot of reflection here. Uh, hello, hello. Uh, what is going on here? Hold on, a second, guys. I'm gonna have to exit out and come back in. Just give me 1 minute here. Technical difficulties. Are you serious? This thing's acting up a lot. I'm gonna have to end this show. I'll come back tomorrow and talk about the best part of 2020, and I'm getting a lot of reflection. Actually, looks like I'm getting people back here. I don't know why it won't remove this. Honestly, there we go. Hello. Still getting reflection. I don't know what's going on here. So if you're listening to me, I'm hearing a lot of voice reflection. I'm gonna go and end the show at an hour. Tune in tomorrow. It'll be, and we'll talk about. Yeah, I'm getting a reflection, though. I don't know why. Uh, hold on. Delete this. Uh, what's weird? Hello. Yeah. Thanks for telling me that. I don't know why I'm getting a reflection, and you guys aren't. Yeah, if you guys could tune in tomorrow morning around 10 a.m. What I'm gonna do, what I'm gonna do, is talk about the best part of 2020, and we'll just have a general discussion with the whole team. Try to get everybody on there if I can't. Happy New Year! But I will be on there tomorrow at 10 a.m. and we will continue the discussion, and it'll primarily be for the best parts of 2020 and get your guys' interactivity. 10 a.m. Eastern, so yeah, 9 a.m. Central. I'm getting a lot of weird reflection. Sounds normal. Okay, I don't know. StreamYard's weird. Anyways, thanks for joining me today. I hope you guys enjoyed the show. I apologize for the last part of it. I'm going to actually edit out this part, uh, and I'll see you guys tomorrow. Thanks again for watching, and have a great one.